Legit breakout candidates for the Georgia Bulldogs for the 2024 season. I think there's a handful of guys that can really take a step forward, start to make a real impact. Some freshmen from last season. A lot of times you see that year one to year two jump. I think Kirby talks about that being one of the biggest jumps that you can get in football is that year one to year two in a college program, right? Because you're coming off of being a high school senior and maybe you get to college a little bit early. Maybe you're not as developed. Maybe your mind's not as developed. There's a couple of guys in that 2023 class I think are legitimate breakout candidates. I think that there are a couple of freshmen that you could see make some plays on the field, maybe in the way that Bear Alexander made a couple plays in 2022. Maybe in the way that Branson Robinson made a couple plays in 2022. Not in the way that perhaps Brock Bowers made some plays in 2021 and not the volume of plays that A.D. Mitchell made. That was a loud touchdown catch, if you know what I'm saying. But maybe in terms of impact, right? He gets a couple hundred yards. He gets a couple touchdowns, something like that. I think that there are a few freshmen that can come in and make a little bit of an impact on a team that rotates a lot because they have so much depth, because they are so talented at so many spots. Let's go ahead and talk with one that was really thrown around a lot. That was really thrown around a lot during the spring practice process. Rodri Robinson, running back. It's a California guy. This is a guy that Matt DeBerry says is a legend in Southern California for the numbers that he put up during high school. He was a true freshman a year ago. Statistically, right, he didn't make a huge impact for Georgia. In the cupcake schedule, the cupcake month that they had is when you saw the most of Rodri Robinson. He obviously dealt with a little bit of injuries too that kind of kept him out of that rotation. This is a different running back for Georgia. This is a big guy. This is like 6 foot, 240 pounds, brick wall of a running back. He ended up being Georgia's third leading rusher, albeit not impressive, but the case, 24 carries for 196 yards. He ends up getting 2 touchdowns. He is along the 36, so he shows that there is an explosive playability. Showed that against Florida State as well, taking a couple handoffs for some good chunk gains. Roderick is a guy that got the most touches out of the backfield out of any running back for Georgia at G-Day on April 13th. That was a while ago now. He was kind of the featured back, right? Well, the running game didn't work very well at G-Day, and I don't know that it worked really well at any of the scrimmages. That's kind of something that Kirby alluded to. He kind of discounted the rumors that Roderick and these running backs were having such a great spring when he talked about, well, they left a lot of yards out on the field in one of the scrimmages. We didn't even have an explosive run. So maybe they haven't been doing as well as people thought, but Roderick is a guy that's going to have opportunity, right? The assumption is that Trevor Etienne is most likely going to get suspended at the beginning of the season. He's going to miss probably a game. That's the assumption. Just if you look at the history of the way Georgia deals with punishments, with some of those driving punishments, that looks like a likely scenario for Trevor. And if that's the case, Roderick's going to find himself as the RB1. And at the season opener against Clemson, barring Branson Robinson's miraculous comeback and just looks like he did beforehand, because if that's the case, then I think you're going to see a lot of Branson Robinson, kind of on the assumption that Branson will take a while to become his full self again. Roderick's going to get carries, and he's likely going to be the second leading running back for Georgia, and that qualifies for breakout territory. Let's move on to a linebacker, a guy that ESPN's kind of been all over. I'll talk to you a little bit about what they had to say about him. A guy that got a lot of snaps this spring, didn't really get many last spring, a very coveted linebacker. He was a 5-star. This is a legit guy, super, super fast. You see him flying around the field. He had 15 tackles. He had a half sack. He played some snaps last year. His partner in crime, C.J. Allen, ended up being the guy that kind of took over for Jamon Dumas-Johnson in the wake of his injury and was more heavy in the rotation. I think Raelean Wilson is not necessarily a starter because I think Smile Mondon will be in that spot, but Raelean is going to rotate in. And I think between C.J. Allen, Raelean Wilson, Smile Mondon, Jalen Walker can play inside linebacker. They've got they got some freshmen like Justin Williams, Chris Jones, Chris Cole. They're tough at that spot, and Raelean Wilson is a guy that's getting a lot of traction now that he's gotten that spring. He's in year 2. Smile Mondon missed a lot of this spring, which let the door open to develop Raelean Wilson even more, which means they're going to probably trust him to rotate in there for Smile Mondon at that spot on a more consistent basis. I expect to see him out there a lot. Number 5, if you don't know who he is, Rodri Robinson is number 0. If you weren't sure about him on offense, this is what ESPN said about Raelean Wilson. With former starting inside linebacker Juwan Dumas-Johnson transferring to Kentucky, the Bulldogs are looking for someone to start next to Smile London Jr. in the middle of their defense. Interesting. They're taking the angle that it's a Raelean Wilson versus CJ Allen competition, which I don't think is out of the question. Not necessarily my prediction, but not out of the question. After a knee injury that he suffered in preseason camp in 2023, sophomore Raelean Wilson showed flashes of why he was one of the most coveted linebacker prospects in the country as a senior at Lincoln High School in Tallahassee, Florida. Wilson was named to the SEC All-Freshman team. He was one of the fastest runners in the state in the 100-meter dash and was once clocked at 24 miles per hour on the GPS. ESPN framing it as a linebacker competition between Raelean Wilson and CJ Allen. That is news to me. It's totally possible. I think that nobody's safe necessarily in their spot. Maybe Smile London's not safe. I have a hard time thinking that Smile London will not be one of the starting linebackers, a guy that has been a starting linebacker on a championship team, not game, and a guy that is a freak athlete in his own right. Smile London is one of the freakier athletes on this football team. I know that they're adding a lot of them in that linebacker room, but Smile London is the guy that you see the side-to-side and the instincts. He is a very, very good linebacker. I believe he's one of the starters. CJ Allen played really well in reserve for Juwan Dumas-Johnson, and he showed a lot of potential at that middle linebacker spot. Maybe a lot of people think, well, is he the next really good middle linebacker for Georgia over the next few years? He definitely has a leg up because of the production and the snaps over Raelean Wilson, but maybe that does turn into a little bit of a competition. A guy that is not a freshman, another not freshman, this will be another sophomore that I want to talk about, is an edge player, outside linebacker Gabe Harris. All right, Georgia just lost 2 guys at that spot in the transfer portal, and Darius Smith and Marvin Jones Jr. More true pass rushers. This is a guy in Gabe Harris that's 6'4", 245. He's not as tall and skinny and long as them. And I think that he's going to be better in run stop than they were. That's what you saw at G-Day. This is a guy that got in the backfield. This is a guy that could set the edge. I think that Gabe Harris, he'll be wearing number 29 on defense if I'm not mistaken. I wish there was a way I could double check that really, really fast. Yes, 29, Gabe Harris, outside linebacker. Chaz Chambliss, and honestly, Mike Williams is going to be playing that spot a little bit more, but expect to see Gabe Harris in that rotation. A guy that played a lot with the first-team defense at G-Day, and a guy that flashed and made some plays and was in the backfield on run plays. He showed some speed. I think you could see a guy like Gabe Harris break out. All of a sudden, he's a contributor for a team that goes really far in the college football playoff, or maybe wins the whole thing. I'm going to touch on a couple players that are not necessarily my legit breakouts, but are some other guys. I think Jordan Hall is a popular name, number 44, defensive tackle. Jamal Jarrett, same thing, kind of in that interior defensive line. He has been a popular breakout candidate, but with Nazir Stackhouse and Warren Brinson hanging around, I don't lean towards them as much. A lot of people like Christian Miller as well. That defensive line, real popular for breakout candidates. Just I'm not as high on them as some of the other positions. And Genoa Aguero, he's a guy that I think is going to get thrown into a starting spot, and I don't really want to call him a breakout, even though, yes, that would be what it is, but a guy that I think is going to play that nickel corner position for Georgia. A couple freshmen. If there are freshmen that make an impact, who might they be? I'll tell you what, 2 of them flash. 2 of them really flashed to me at G-Day. One of them was Joseph Jonah Ajanye, number 99, the defensive end. Long, tall, fast. If he develops well, he's going to be a monster for Georgia. And KJ Bolden, a guy that they can use in the return game, a guy that they can use on offense if they really wanted to, and a guy that could be a versatile guy in the secondary. I thought that he was very good against the run and can get better against the pass and has a lot of speed and instincts. Legit breakout candidates for Georgia. Given to you by Ryan Kelly from Dawg Post, asking you to sign up for the newsletter, and thank you for watching.